So we're back again at Tiwanaku and Puma Punku. This could very well be my 50th trip here, but every time we find something new, because this is a place of forensic study. It's not grandiose like Machu Picchu or Cusco is, but its history dates back thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years, and this is where we find incredibly obvious examples of lost ancient high technology. So today we're fortunate in that we have 85-year-old British engineer and inventor Tony with us, and we're going to see what insights he has as to what we're going to be looking at here. Conventional archaeology states that Tiwanaku began construction more or less about 2,000 years ago, but we're going to see evidence of lost ancient high technology that probably dates back many thousands of years before that. So what you're looking at is what is called the Akapana Pyramid. It originally had 7 levels, and now you can see it's all covered in dirt. And the question is, was that dirt the result of a massive cataclysm from Lake Titicaca that basically buried the structure? So what you're looking at there is reconstruction, probably during the Tiwanaku culture period. The stones do not tightly fit together, and it's a mix of the gray andesite and the red sandstone. Whereas here, that's the original construction. Everything is tight fitting together, and it's all solid red sandstone. And these column-like things were found buried, because that is the level. They were found buried 3 feet underground, giving it the possible idea that a giant mud wave came from Lake Titicaca in that direction and swept over the entire site, burying the Akapana Pyramid. And here too you see some of the original blocks in place. That one is heavily damaged. And most of the rest of the wall that was originally here was harvested in order to construct the town, original town, in likely the 16th century over in the distance. And here too you see reconstruction that was done. This could be ancient reconstruction, but the vertical columns are the original, and look at the extent of the weathering. And here too you see modern reconstruction, and then there's the original level. And again, the amount of weathering, and that first level was buried in at least 3 feet, if not more, of mud. The quarry for the red sandstone is in the distance there. It may not even be this mountain, it could be over that mountain. The quarry has been estimated to be 10 kilometers from the site. And the gray andesite, which is the other material, is even more amazing because it comes from the top of a volcano 70 kilometers away. And a lot of these stones are at least 10 tons. So the question is, how would a relatively primitive people like the Tiwanaku move stones of that scale when we are above the tree line? There are no trees for rollers in this area whatsoever. So that, in fact, is where the quarry is. Cerro or Mount Capia. And these are some of the original andesite vertical columns. Of course, all of the fill was done in very recent times, but you see the scale of how large some of these stones are.
Is that one?
So you see this surface here,
It looks the same shape.
and these groove patterns in it. Now some people say that this is hand carved, and other people say that it could have been machined, and the reason why it's rough now, of course, is because of its extreme antiquity. And here we have Tiwanaku period reconstruction. You see, they used clay mortar in between the stones, and they didn't care what the shape or size was. They were just building a wall. And the famous sun gate, you see the extreme erosion on this side. The perfect flatness that is the other side, and much better preserved front, which means that it lay down on this surface in the mud for a very long period of time. Thousands of years. The flat surfaces are the original pre-Tiwanaku culture, and then the Tiwanaku people themselves did the carving much later. And what you can see here is that they actually never finished it on the left-hand side. So the original site of Tiwanaku and Puma Punku, which are the same place, just because they have a fence around each one with a different name on it doesn't mean that they're different. They're the same place. And the original construction had no art whatsoever. All of the artwork we see of the birdmen, the Viracocha figures, etc., was all added later, thousands of years later, by the Tiwanaku culture, who found this as an abandoned complex. Also, there are some pieces here that are clearly still buried, like this block here. And here, and there, and there. And again, these astonishing flat surfaces, thousands upon thousands of them here. There's no way that a Bronze Age culture could have done all of that work in very hard stone. And this is where the Tiwanaku people themselves were making score marks in order to break the stone into smaller pieces. You see how crude the workmanship is as compared to this more ancient surface. And here you have what are called keystone cuts. Molten bronze was poured into those recesses. But the question is, how would a primitive people be able to melt bronze at 13,000 feet above sea level? And there have been ground-penetrating radar studies of this area, and they have found that there are chambers underground at this site. So even though 90% of Puma Punku and Tiwanaku was harvested by cultures going back as far as 1,000 years, there's a lot underground still to discover. The question is, will it ever be excavated? And here actually is an example. This is a relatively recent excavation. You see it goes down at least 2 feet. And what they found is they found the opening to this. Right now it's full of water, but it could actually be part of a system of different chambers. It may be a chamber by itself, but maybe not. Maybe it's part of a system of ancient underground chambers at Tiwanaku. So, Tony, what have you discovered?
Well, if you look at this radiation, it's a Tesla radiation meter. You can see a figure on there of 20.1.
Right.
21.1. Move across to this block here, and what does it say? It says 57.
Wow, 58.1.
And that is, it's different.
60.5.
And this block also affects the magnetic compass, this particular block.
Oh, really? This one?
Yes, this one does.
We can show that the needle moves differently in the sides of this piece.
Right.
So Tony's right with his measuring. The needle is pointing north.
Yeah.
If we move slowly, the needle goes almost 45 to 30% off the north.
So background radiation here, 21.9, about 20. And as we approach the darker stones, like this one, 46.2, 46.7. So why would we be reading radiation here at Tiwanaku on the Altiplano of Bolivia? I don't think anybody has actually ever brought one of these little apps here to measure that. It was quite intriguing. Should be. So the highest reading we've got so far is 7 times background radiation, 140 as compared to 20. So what we want to do next is go to Punku and see readings on the H blocks and other beautiful pieces of the ancient andesite there. So what you're looking at there is a tunnel that connects to a shaft that goes to the top of what is called the Akapana Pyramid. And where we are is in what's called the Sunken Temple, which is the one with all the heads. And one theory is that before it was a ceremonial temple with the carved heads, etc., that this was part of a metallic ore processing plant thousands of years before the Tiwanaku culture. So what it could be, because mineral ore is found all over this area. You have copper, you have tin, you have silver, you have gold, you have amalgams of all these different ones, that this could have been actually a settling pond, that they poured a mix of water and the metallic ore in the reservoir that was on top of this. It went down the shaft, through the tunnel, down another shaft, through another tunnel, into this settling pond, and then as the metals would start to sink, they would separate. Gold would be the heaviest, dropping to the bottom. Then they would simply pull the plug on in the corner here. All the water would come out, and then you would have this layer of metals, and so you could skim that, and then through processing it, you could separate it into gold, silver, tin, copper, etc. It's a theory, at least. Why else would somebody build a sunken temple? Okay, we're in the village of Tiwanaku, here in the Altiplano of Bolivia, at a private residence, and we are being given permission to film and photograph a large stone sculpture or monolith that's inside somebody's house. Oh, wow. Wow. Ah, yeah. Perfecto. Entonces, añadir. So that big sculpture was found when they were actually building the house. Yes. It was found exactly where it was located. I'm with Antonio Portugal, 40-year expert of Tiwanaku and Puma Punku, and we also saw there were numerous other stones from Puma Punku located in their yard, and the lady, Senora Aida, said that every house here has stones from Puma Punku. So we know, obviously, now that only about 10% is left on the site. Much of it has built this little town. And as evidence of that, we're going to walk into another house and see what they have inside. Once again, we're at the ancient site of Puma Punku, the Altiplano of Bolivia. Part of the complex that's also known as Tiwanaku. They're both the same place. It's just one fence surrounds one, another fence surrounds another. And this is one of the most mysterious places on the planet, because there is no way that the so-called Tiwanaku culture was responsible for the original constructions, because we're looking at obvious lost ancient high technology. So as you can see, a lot of this was found buried under at least 2 feet of mud.
Oh, yeah, with your... No, I'm saying 30 years ago, we employed a company in England who had a laptop. They bring a laptop and they string a multiple cable half a mile.
So what you just saw over here are two of the famous H blocks, of which there are 8 here. No one has any idea how many there were originally, and each one is a different shape and size. They're not uniform, unlike what some people have stated. You see the sheer size of some of these red sandstone slabs.
Well, this one at the front is huge.
And the quarry is either the top of those mountains or even behind the mountains, 10 kilometers away. So what we've discovered today is that Puma Punku is radioactive. Here's the ambient, about 22. And then when we go towards the famous H blocks, on the outside, not much of a difference. We go to the inside, it jumps up or it doubles. And we go to the outside here, and it doubles. Back off again. Oops. The whole area is quite weird. Again to the outside. Inside. Now the strange thing is that the ambient radiation at Tiwanaku, which is over there, read 21 to 22. Here it's 90, so that's more than 4 times the level of radiation at Puma Punku as compared to Tiwanaku. And again, some of the famous H blocks, and we have author Antonio Portugal, who has brought a very simple compass, and he's reading strange things.
Yeah, the difference between these two H pieces, in the right one, it points to the north. Exactly, if we put in the other one, it points different. So the magnetism of each H are different. So we have to do a deeper study from this in the magnetic studies.
Also, the H blocks are highly magnetized in different ways. This is quite wild. You see here, and we put it inside.
Let me hold your hand.
Altars.
Let's do it together. Fasten it on the end. Yeah, we're going to put that thing over there. Stop it, stop it.
You hold in my hand and also your baston. Positively. It will get bigger with the second.
Yeah? Yeah. That's not bad, but it's bigger. Yeah. Captain, I award you now a general.
Well, with this longer, we'll get longer.
I have to tell you, madam, You're not allowed to put your bottom on that. I shall report you to the head office.
Aye, sir.
Another thing that most people don't know is that one of the H blocks was not finished. It is incomplete, and that's what we're going to look at next. There seem to have been two different types of technology involved in the cutting and shaping, not only of the H blocks, but probably all of the andesite, gray andesite, here at ancient, mysterious, enigmatic, I've been here 50 times and I'm still blown away, Puma Punku. So finished here, but unfinished and rough here. So we're looking at two different kinds of technology. There was one that came in here, almost like sandblasting, because it's quite rough and the corners are rounded. So this is not a conventional cutting tool that we would think of. And then afterwards, a second type of cutting is involved, making these beautifully crisp corners. We have an engineer, Tony, who's here, who has done a lot of machining in England, doing various processes, and he has no idea how, with 21st century technology, that could be achieved. We see where the flat surfaces are, where they intersect, there are no tool marks, no sanding marks, and yet the surfaces are within a few thousandths of an inch of being laser flat.